watching the time just ticking. Clock runs around, days in and out, can't really call it living. Somewhere I let light go dark, but here's where my new story starts.
Hello, welcome to Heart of the Tribe. My name is Chelle Wagner. I'm so glad you came to join me today. So I got a little bit of feedback from last week's show. And let me see, I'm getting a error message. Just want to make sure we're good. All right. Okay, hopefully I'm good. All right. So anyway, I did get some feedback from last week's show, and it seemed like that whole topic of trauma really, resonated for people. And so, I wanted to kind of continue on in that stream. I'm going to put up comments just to make sure that I can see. Let's just look here for a second. Let me put up the comments. All right, so now I can see if anybody, has comments while we're going. It looks like things are live. All right, so I'm going to get going. So one of the biggest things that's been on my heart and my mind is the reunification of the whole house of Yasharel, which is why the name of my ministry is Heart of the Tribe. So I wanted to just start sharing from there and kind of continue on with this theme of handling trauma. Okay, so I'm in Isaiah chapter 11. Starting at verse 11, and I'm going to go down through 16, and then I just want to talk about this a little bit. It says, and it shall come to pass in that day. So what day are we talking about? Every time we see the words that day, we know that this is referring to an end time period. That's the way that I've always been taught what that means, is that it's referring to that very last day's time. Okay, so it shall come to pass in that day that Adonai shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people. It's really interesting. It's what's left over. It's who survives whatever trouble has come upon the earth at that time. That's whoever's left out of that. That's the remnant of his people, right? Which shall be left from Ashur and from Mitzrayim and from Pathrock and from Cush and from Elam and from Shinar and from Hamath and from the islands of the sea. So every time we see that, the islands of the sea, what can we glean from that? I mean, look at a map. Where are the islands of the sea located? All over the map. All four corners of the earth, everywhere you go, that's where the islands of the sea are. It's everywhere. So that's what we can see. This is who it's referring to. This is where his people have been scattered. This is where they are. They're in every nation, right? Isaiah 11:12. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations. Now that ensign, it's something that's glittery, shiny. It's impossible to miss. It's raised high. It's a flag flapping in the wind. It's a sign, right? So he's setting up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcast of Yasharel and gather together the dispersed of Yehuda from the four corners of the earth. Okay, so he's talking about two specific groups of people within this passage, right? Okay, so I'm going to go on here. We're going to come back to that, but I want to just finish this in context. 11:13, the envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Yehudah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Yehudah, and Yehudah shall not vex Ephraim. But they shall fly upon the shoulders of the Philistines, right, toward the west. They shall spoil them of the east together. They shall lay their hand upon Edom and Moab, and the children of Ammon shall obey them. And Yahuwah shall utterly destroy the tongue of the Mitzrayim sea, and with his mighty wind shall he shake his hand over the river, and shall smite it in the 7 streams, and make men go over dry shod. And there shall be a highway for the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Ashur, like as it was to Yasharel in the day that he came up out of the land of Mitzrayim. So then there's a reference back to the first Exodus out of Mitzrayim, right? Okay, so I wanted to go back up here and just look at 11:12. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations and shall assemble the outcast of Yasharel. So I was like, all right, who are these outcasts? What does that mean? So I looked it up in Strong's, and just to find out my number. And then I like the Brown Driver Briggs for definitions. That to me gives some of the best definitions at times. I also like using like my etymological dictionary. You can see I have them over here. I almost always have them because I like taking things back to that their roots and what is the etymology of the word. I was looking at what is the etymology of etymology? Truth. So that's what that means. It's trying to get to the truth of the word, right? Okay. So when I looked at this, the dispersed the outcast of Yasharel. So outcast is Strong's number H5080. It is spelled with a noon dalet het, right? It's nadak. All right. And the BDB definition is to impel, thrust, drive away, or banish. So the outcast of Yasharel are those who have been thrust away, those who have been driven away, those who were banished, right? That's who he's talking about. And it says now, and he shall set up an ensign for the nations and shall assemble the outcast of Yasharel and gather together the dispersed of Yahudah from the 4 corners of the earth. So what is that word dispersed? Okay, it is nafatz, which is a noon pay, and it looks like a zadi sofit, right? So that one is those to shatter, break, dash, beat in pieces. When I looked at that word, I went, wow, isn't that true of Yehuda? You know, when I think of a people that have been shattered, broken, dashed, beat in pieces, my brother Yehuda has been dashed, shattered, broken, and beat in pieces. These are, you know, when I look at it, really, these are 2 groups that have known trauma, all right, who have suffered for their choice to follow the Mashiach. So when I thought about that, I thought about, you know, I have a friend who grew up in an Orthodox Jewish home, and in high school she went with a friend to a church service, kind of snuck off with a friend to go to a church service. She met the Messiah. Her family, she has told me with the tears running down her face of what it was like for her family to sit Shiva for her as if she was dead and gone, as if she no longer existed, never to be spoken to again. Did my friend suffer? My Orthodox Jewish friend, did she suffer for her choice to follow the Messiah? I've seen her tears. I've heard the heartbreak in her voice. She suffered. She suffered for that, right? Now, I also know that when I chose to follow Torah, it it has brought suffering, because I was having the time of my life, right? I was, I'd come out of such darkness, and now here I am, and I'm in the church system, and I have found joy, 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 the joy of salvation, and, joy of friends that are, you know, clean and, kind, and a whole different type of lifestyle, right? And I've been introduced into this lifestyle. And then as I'm leading worship in front of a singing Christmas tree, Yah starts knocking on my heart and saying, come out of this. This isn't what I have for you. And I went, well, what do you mean? What do you mean come out of this? And I can tell you, in my life, once I made that choice to walk away, that was back in let me see, that was 2002 that I heard that call. And I knew that celebrating Easter and Christmas and the things that I had done within the church system, I couldn't do it anymore. I had to walk away. Now, I'm from a family of the South, and, Sundays are sacred in the South. They are sacred. They are made for families to go to church together, come home, have a big meal together around the table and talk and fellowship. And I mean, your whole life, that's your life, right? Those are all your connections, all your friendships. And when I walked away from that, that meant, the suffering of some loneliness for my choice to follow Torah. And it's been a long time. And so, it's been that was a difficult choice, but it was the right choice. Okay. So anyway, getting further into this, there's suffering in both groups. No matter which camp you came out of, it involves a sacrifice and a suffering. Okay. So now here's the promise in this. In Isaiah 11:13, it says, the envy of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Yehuda shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Yehuda, and Yehuda shall not vex Ephraim. Now, this is what I see kind of going on still in the body today. That envy is kana, kuf nun aleph, right? It's to envy, be jealous, be envious. And there is that. You see this in the people that would be considered more from Ephraim. They feel like, well, I'm a second-class citizen. And so many ways it is taught that way, even though that is not true. Yah doesn't have second-class citizens. He doesn't have second-class children. Okay. And then the other promise is Yehuda will stop vexing Ephraim. And that is zarar. It is a zadi resh resh. And that word means to bind, to be narrow, to be in distress, to make narrow, to cause distress, right? To bind, tie up, shut up, to cramp in, right? And so when we take Ephraim, when Yehuda takes Ephraim and tries to shove them in a box, you saw this in the setup of the early church as they were coming together. This is what a lot of the discussions between, Paul and Peter and the disciples trying to figure out, how do we do this? Now, Yahusha's made for a way for the whole world to come into the household of Elohim and be a part. And they're having all these discussions about, what should be required of them, right? And so here we're seeing a promise at the very end that no longer will Yehuda try to distress, make narrow, or cause distress to Ephraim. No longer will they try to cramp them in and cause them to be in straits, like a straitjacket. Okay. And why? Because they've got a common enemy. See, they are going to fly upon, I'm back in Isaiah 11:14. They're going to fly upon the shoulders of the Palestine toward the west. They shall spoil them of the east together. They shall lay their hand upon Edom and Moab, and the children of Ammon shall obey them. And Yahuwah shall utterly destroy the tongue of the Mitzrayim sea, the tongue of the Egyptian sea. So what do we see in there? We see, Egyptians. When I went to it is Mitzrayim, and when I went to the Brown Driver Briggs, it's like double straits, okay? And then the sea, it's Yom, it's H3220 out of Strong's. It's Yom. Now the sea is always like that prophetic picture of the world system, the masses of humanity moving. It moves, water moves in the path of least resistance. And this is what we see going on in the masses of humanity right now. I saw it in my own family members who decided to take the solution to freedom that was being offered by the world, to get a little pass so that they could do whatever they wanted to do, a promise of freedom. It's moving in the path of least resistance, right? I'm not moving in that path. I'm not moving in the path of least resistance, right? I'm not going to be unstable as water, but I'm going to follow the path that Messiah has laid forth. And it's not always the easiest, difficult thing to do. Now, from my experience, nothing unites people more than common peril. And I wanted to share something about that. So I'm going to 2 Peter 1, chapter 1, verses 3 through 7. We have never seen the need for unity, humanity, love, brotherly kindness, all right, in the midst of peril cannot be stressed enough. Okay, and we're told this in 2 Peter 1, 3 through 7. As he has given unto us all things that pertain unto the power of Yahweh, to life and the fear of Yahweh, through the knowledge of him that has called us to glory and virtue, whereby are given unto us exceeding great and precious promises, that by these you might be partakers of the nature of Yahweh, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust. It always comes through lust. I want this. I want this. I want this. I need more, right? This is what we see in the world system. This is what drives the world system. It is the spirit of lust. It's not always just a sexual thing. You can lust for money, power, position, all those things. It's lust. That spirit of lust is behind it. All right. And beside this, giving all diligence, add to your belief virtue, and to virtue knowledge, and to knowledge temperance, and to temperance patience, and to patience the fear of Yah, and to the fear of Yah brotherly kindness, and to brotherly kindness love. Now, I mean, I see this as a direct reference. In my view, all of the Brit Hadashah is a commentary written on what we find in the Torah and the prophets and the writings, and the wisdom. That's what this is. And so I see a direct correlation there of what was given to us with the 7 spirits of Yah, which, I keep up on my board over there. There's, the wisdom and the fear of Yah as the shamash candle, the servant, knowledge, wisdom, understanding, mercy, might. I'm not sure if I'm getting them all, but anyway, it's in Isaiah 11 if you want to look that up to study more of it. So right there, that brotherly kindness, I think that if we are going to defeat our common enemy in this day, and I am quite certain that I was just having a conversation with friends of mine, and a dear brother that keeps a lot of contact within the land was sharing the amount of trouble coming upon the land right now in the land of Israel, and sharing his concerns about what he saw, coming upon the land with war. And I was sharing my concerns because I see the same things here coming upon the United States, as well as it's going to affect all nations, we know. But so to defeat a common enemy, We've got to come together in brotherly love. One more that I saw on that was out of Galatians, right? 3:26 through 29. For ye are all the children of Yahweh by belief in Mashiach Yahusha. For as many of you as have been immersed into Mashiach have put on Mashiach, right? That old man's been done away with. We have a new identity, right? There is neither Yahudi nor Yavini, right? There's neither Jew nor Greek. Okay. There is neither bond nor free. There is neither male nor female. You're all one in Yahusha HaMashiach. And if you belong to Mashiach, then ye are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. So trauma causes the soul to cry deep tears of suffering. Strong emotions cause difficult questions to rise to the surface. Now, I really wanted to share this because I believe that, I am speaking to leaders that during this day of trouble, time of trouble, that it is certainly possible that many are going to be sent our way that are having to deal with trauma in their lives. And we are Yah's light on earth. And so as these people that have been, dealt blows of trauma and are coming to a newfound faith come in, we as a people of Yah have to have answers for them and comfort for them and love for them and a spirit of compassion and mercy for them. So I wrote a few things about it and I was just going to share that with you. Trauma causes the soul to cry deep tears of suffering. Strong emotions cause the difficult questions to rise to the surface. Questions that feel unsafe, right? There's always questions that we tuck away in the deep corner of the basement of our minds, things that it's like, we're just not going to deal with that right now. We're going to skip right over that question. And a lot of that is in our faith, right? In our faith work and how things work and how Yah deals sometimes with us. So when we are forced through suffering to deal with the emotions of circumstances we don't understand, we can't reason through them. We have no neat little box to put them in. Anger can rise up. So not all anger is bad. Acting on anger is sin. We are not to act out on our anger, but examining those emotions of anger and where that stuff is coming from and these feelings that are coming up, that is actually healthy. We just have to bring it before Yah, right? I have noticed that the people that I've had the most conflict with, and this really brought it to mind on Mondays. I was on Monday's show with Mark and Daryl had mentioned that, he saw that one of the biggest problems in the body was conflict resolution. And I could not agree more. That is exactly what we have is difficulty knowing how to properly resolve conflicts with each other, right? So as I reflected on that and started thinking about that, I thought, the people that I have been most angry with in my life were actually those people that I truly longed to have a very deep relationship with, those that I trusted the most. Because if I didn't really care about them, you have a conflict with somebody out in whatever, and it's like, yeah, okay, whatever. And you just kind of blow it off. It doesn't evoke these deep reactions from you, right? But the ones that we really care about and that we're striving, we desire to be in a relationship with, a tight knit relationship with, those, when we have conflicts with people that we are invested in, that's where it brings out the most emotion. Okay. Those that I trusted in the most. So why is that? It's because I have higher expectations for the relationship, and those conflicts, they must be resolved. So I was thinking about that before I have the ability. I was reflecting on the 10 commandments. So In the first 5, Yah's trying to tell me, this is how you get along with me, right? Learn to get along with me. Learn not to put up, false Elohim in my face. Learn how to love me, how to honor my Shabbat and be in covenant with me. Learn how to walk with me, right? And then he says, and then also learn how to treat your brother, right? Learn how to walk in brotherly love, the last 5. So before conflict resolution happens in the body of Messiah, it has to happen individually between Yahweh and the Mashiach and the individual believer. So I shared on the last time I did my show that I met the Father, our Heavenly Father, after the trauma of losing my child. All right. That I had a lifetime of drowning my emotions in alcohol, living or existing in a state of deadness, because that's what alcohol does. The reason that I drank is because I couldn't stand the feelings. I couldn't stand the emotions. I had no earthly idea what to do with them. And they just screamed inside of me and inside of my brain unless I deadened them. That alcohol gave me the ability at that point in my life to survive some pretty difficult circumstances, right? I survived it, but it was a living death. Salvation, when I first met the Messiah, it was just joy, 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 right? Freedom, right? Finally, I have an answer that doesn't mean living a life of death, okay? But after a short time, all those emotions that alcohol had attempted to drown out, they weren't really dead. The emotions weren't dead. I had just tried to drown them, and they resurfaced, okay? They'd not been resolved. I had questions, really big questions, angry questions, okay? And I had a mental expectation of who God was supposed to be based on misinformation and bad religious theology. Okay, so what happened is then I got the Shabbat, the rod, right? I've got it here in paleo. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. The Shabbat and the Matah, okay? This is what y'all had to bring in my life, okay? I like to transpose things into paleo, so I'm always, doing that and doing little drawings and this, that, and the other. So anyway, it took this rod of correction. So I had finally reached such a gut level honesty and my crying out to the Father that despair became my biggest ally. It was through despair, really, and trouble that he pushed me to him. Okay. These things what happened in my life, just one of the things, this has actually been kind of a continuous theme. There's a level of trauma that comes, and then there's relief, and it's always that rod of correction. The reason for it is the rod of correction, because Yah loves me too much to leave me in a state that I was in a state of ignorance, in a state of sin, in a state of bad theology, of bad mindsets, of misunderstanding. He wants me to know who he truly is so that I can relate to him properly and help relate him to others properly, so that we're told we're to be his ambassadors on the earth. Yahusha told Peter, he said, do you love me? He asked him 3 times, do you love me? Go feed my sheep. That's your job. Don't club them over the head. Don't beat them into submission. Feed them. Give them sustenance, right? This is how we're to treat them. Give them something that they can partake of that will help them to strengthen and to grow, right? Don't tell them everything they're doing wrong all at once. Don't try to beat them with it, but give them some sustenance, right? So this is how he works with us. So I just wanted to share a few scriptures. When my biggest like the latest trial of testing that changed my life. I'm just going to share this one. Was in 2014, I became very, very ill. I had no idea what was making me ill, but I was very, very ill. And at this time in my life, my husband and I had our own business, and our business was taking up every second of my life. I was lucky to flip open the Bible and read one or two lines. I stayed busy, 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 busy. I was not every Shabbat at that point in my life, I had an excuse that my ox was in a ditch, right? I was giving myself that excuse. And so is my husband. This is what we were doing because we were trying to start a new business, and we were drowning because it was not very successful and we weren't doing it Yah's way. And everything that we were doing was failing. We'd been at it for a few years when in 2014, I got too sick to continue in that way. I started getting ill. We still were trying to continue. By 2016, I became way too ill to continue. And we finally were at the point where I was losing all my hair. I had no energy. My skin was just broken out in rashes. I couldn't breathe. I was losing my vision. We didn't know what in the world was going on with me. Right. And so my husband was pushing me around in a wheelchair. It was not only could I not work hardly at that point, but he was trying to work and support it and make this thing run. And I was, rushing around. To make a long story short, we found out what it was. Our home had gotten mold in it, and it had totally affected my health tremendously. And we found out through testing, through working with a lot of different doctors, functional medicine doctors, integrative doctors, that I had a gene that made me very susceptible to that. This is what we were told. And that, when you have a gene that doesn't, that is corrupted, they call it the MTHFR gene, right? And that when you have this gene, and then it's like how you've got this bucket in your life, and over, when toxins enter the bucket, eventually it gets too much and the bucket will tip over, and then it just floods every system in your body with symptoms. And so that was why I was just having multiple symptoms all over the place. We went through, conventional medicine first, and we went through, a rheumatologist. I remember I had waited 6 months to get this referral to this, after going through a year of working with this one doctor, and finally got them to give me a referral to a rheumatologist. And they came back and said, you have fibromyalgia. And I was like, well, yeah, I know I've got all the symptoms of that, but we still don't know what's really wrong with me. It was so disappointing. And they said, well, you may have other problems too. And they wanted to put me on all these prescription medications. And I knew in my ruach that this was the wrong answer, right? I knew that was not the way to go. And so, I went home and prayed about it, and finally ended up at the functional medicine doctor, and we figured out what was wrong. Well, the solution to fix what was wrong meant shutting down our business, because we dealt in old moldy stuff all the time. That's what it's like when you have an auction house, right? And it was very demanding and very stressful, and I couldn't do it anymore. And I remember at the time I had 4 Etsy stores. We had 13 antique booths. We had the auction house. I mean, we worked. I was always in somebody's moldy basement. I was always up in somebody's moldy attic. I was constantly dealing with, with this kind of stuff. And so the word that we got from the doctor was, give up your business. You can try to save your house, but it's probably not going to work, right? It ends up, no, we couldn't save the house. We did lose the business, and we had to, and all of our possessions, we were told by the doctors that every possession that we owned that wasn't like something like glass, or was thicker than a pair of jeans, really needed to be thrown in the trash can. All the mattresses, all the couches, we had to rip up. We were trying to save this house, right? And we ripped it down to the subflooring, found out even the subflooring had mold in it. We ripped out closets. We ripped down walls. We were living. My kitchen sink was sitting on 2x4s that my husband had put it on while I was still trying to, make this. We were going to make this house work, and it was impossible. Then the only job that my husband could get was an hour and a half from where we were. So then that meant leaving our tour community, everybody that we did know that we were involved with, because we had really tried to reconnect. Y'all, it was getting our attention and we were reconnecting and plugging back in. And he went, nope, I'm even going to take that. So we ended up having to live at this campground for a solid year. And then after living at the campground, and it became, it was so difficult. And I can't even begin to tell you how difficult it was. That year, we were snowed in for 21 days. And that doesn't happen in this area. It was below 20 degrees in the daytime for 21 days straight. It was just nothing but ice in this little camper, and it was so cold. I was sleeping with a snow ski cap on my head, and we were having all of our pipes were frozen up, and it was a really decrepit campground we were in. And I was working at this after school program. I'd gotten a job at an after school program, and I was working with the kids, and they had showers there and they had, water there. So I was driving and getting us water and trying to bring it home. And I mean, it was a mess. It was difficult, but in it, at the beginning of it, one of the things that I got, and I think this kind of saved my sanity. I've shared before that one of the things that Yah does is he allows me to craft my way through difficulties in my life. And that happened. And so I was given this coloring Bible, and it really ended up meaning quite a lot to me. And so I ended up really coloring some pictures and some Psalms. The Psalms helped me handle the trauma. And this is some things that really helped me deal with the fact that I was asking God, what's up? Why are you allowing this in my life? I thought you loved me, and here it is. You've stripped me of everything, and I don't even have anyone to talk to. My friends are an hour and a half away. I know no one. I have no home. I've lost all my possessions, and all of our savings has gone towards doctor. My health is gone. It was difficult. So I got in this book, right? I got in my coloring Bible, and here's some of the things that really ministered to me at that time in my life. Psalm 56, verse 8. You keep track of all my sorrows. This is the New Living Translation. This is what this coloring Bible was. You keep track of all my sorrows. You've collected my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book. My enemies will retreat when I call to you for help. This I know. God is on my side. Down in verses 12 and 13, I will fulfill my vows to you, O God, and will offer a sacrifice of thanks for your help. For you have rescued me from death. You have kept my feet from slipping, so now I can walk in your presence, O God, in your life-giving light. Another one was Psalm 72. And I really just kind of wrote myself a little note on here. God's heart for us as a people. We are kings and priests unto our God. This must be our purpose. Psalm 72, it says, give your love of justice to the king, O God, and righteousness to the king's son. Help him judge your people in the right way. Let the poor always be treated fairly. May the mountains yield prosperity for all, and may the hills be fruitful. Help him to defend the poor, to rescue the children of the needy, and to crush their oppressors. May they fear you as long as the sun shines, as long as the moon remains in the sky. Yes, forever. Skipping on down to verse 12, he will rescue the poor when they cry to him. He will help the oppressed who have no one to defend them. He feels pity for the weak and the needy, and he will rescue them. He will redeem them from oppression and violence, for their lives are precious to him. Another one over here. Psalm 121. This is the title of it is A Song for the Pilgrims Ascending to Jerusalem. It says, I look up to the mountains. Does my help come from there? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He will not let you stumble. The one who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel never slumbers or sleeps. The Lord himself watches over you. The Lord stands beside you as your protective shade. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon at night. The Lord keeps you from all harm and watches over your life. The Lord keeps watch over you as you come and go, both now and forever. So it's really funny to me. You can see it here. I used this book at that time in my life like a journal, is how I used this Bible. And so on September the 8th of 2018, we moved out of the trailer. We'd moved out of the trailer. Well, we couldn't stand it anymore. My husband was like, I cannot spend another winter in here. We have to find a house to rent. And one of his friends was renting a little cottage that was next to his house. And so we went there and I took a whiff and I was like, it's got mold in it. I can tell it has mold in it. And so I was standing there praying and I said, Father, am I going to be safe here? And all I heard was it was this Italian family that that I would say didn't know Yah the way that I knew Yah. And all I heard in my spirit was, do you have the ability to love this family? And I was like, yeah, I do. I have the ability. He did not answer me to whether I was going to be safe. He didn't address the mold problem. He didn't address my health concerns at all. And we moved into this house and I did get sicker. So at that time I wrote this. I just moved into the new rental house 2 weeks ago. I feel like I have smoked 4 packs of cigarettes a day. I have a rash on both hands, neck, chest. I can't sleep. My sinuses are so stuffed up. My eyes are itching. Yahweh, please help me. I mean, I was just crying out. I was like, I don't understand this. I just don't understand this. About a month after I wrote that, this family's son was killed in a tragic accident, and they were left with their 3 grandchildren to raise and take care of, because the mother of these children was a drug addict and the son had custody, and he had drug and alcohol problems too, but he had custody and he was living with them. And so now they had 3 children to raise in their old age. And they were overwhelmed and scared. And you know how it is when tragedy hits your life, you're very open-minded to the idea of God. That's what trouble does. It makes an opening. And so I was there for them at that time. And I was able to, offer some love and some comfort and some strength and some hope from what y'all had already done in my life. And I needed to keep trusting him. So then on February 15th of the next year, I'm still writing because it had been October when their son died. So now it's February. And I said, I've had to quit my job after the first week of December, the one that I had out at a camp. It was this really cool 350 acre camp where I worked with the children and I really enjoyed it. Says, I have had to quit my job after the first week of December. I've been sick continually, hoping that having my teeth removed may help. I'm trying not to be too discouraged. And that's exactly what I had to do. My blood pressure had shot up. I was having problems. Mold just rots your teeth. That's one of the things that happens. And so this had happened and they were just breaking. They were just breaking. And it was so hard. And so then I met a friend and there was the possibility of moving to the place that I live now. It was so funny. I had met her, a Torah friend, and I had met her and I came to her house. And the very first time I walked into this house where I'm at now, I went, oh, I love this house. I would love to live inside. If this looks just like a house that I would pick as an ideal house for me. That was the first thought that I had. I had just met this woman the day before, and she invited me to a huge Torah celebration of Torah believers in her house with live worship, and the living room's huge and could have this live worship, and it was wonderful. And so they were moving out of the house because they had just been renting it because their house had gotten flooded in another part of the state, and they had a mold invasion and had to move away from their home, and this had been their refuge house for 2 years, and then they were buying a house and moving out, so it became available. So it was very cool. So then in April of that year, I was waiting for that to happen. It was April 20th of 2019. I said, we had to delay celebrating Passover last night because we were going to have Passover here in the house as they were leaving and we were moving in, right? Because we had a huge storm. We are moving to the new house in 2 weeks. I've been continually sick in this house, almost continually. I'm so grateful to be moving and so hopeful I might be able to get well there. I tried to work for 2 weeks in March and got very, very sick again. So, I mean, that was what it was like. That's what my life was like. And it was really hard to understand why y'all might let those things happen in my life. Right. Okay. So one of the things that I do sometimes to save my sanity is I make like prayer shawls and things for women. I love to crochet and paint, and I do all kinds of artwork, and you can see it kind of behind me and around me. I'm always making something. So this is just kind of like one of the ones. This one was for Ancient of Days, Atik Yom, right? And I just wanted to show you guys what it was, because what I wanted to share with you and read to you about was I had made a tallit. A girlfriend had kind of commissioned me to make one for someone else, and I was already in the process of making it. And as I did, every time I do, I end up writing, papers to go for them. And I wanted to share you some of my thoughts from this particular tallit that I made. It was really pretty. It was white and turquoise and yellow, and it was done in this wave pattern, right? And the whole time I was making it, all I could think of was your waves of mercy, your waves of grace. And so I knew it had to do with having a ruach of mercy. So I wanted to read to you what I wrote about that. So the wave offering of the priest is found in the Parsha Tetzaveh, which is translated, you shall command. The high priest is clothed in garments of beauty and glory, with the breastplate of judgment containing the names of all 12 tribes engraved on precious stones and placed over his heart. The heart figuratively refers to the feelings, the will, the intellect of a person. It is the center of a person's emotional intelligence, the intuition and understanding, all aspects of which enable a servant of the king to administer mercy without being influenced by manipulation of another's perceived needs. Right? That's a really important point. When we are having to minister to others, you know, I know you guys will understand if you've been in saved for a while and been walking with y'all for a while. When you meet someone and they are just now coming in, I mean, sometimes their life is just on fire and they think they need this and they need this and they need this and they need this because they don't have any wisdom or understanding of the ways of Yahweh. So we have to kind of navigate our way through that with a spirit of mercy, not giving in to necessarily what they are perceiving that they are needing, but what is Yahweh telling us by his ruach, by his counsel, by his understanding, by his wisdom, how we can best minister into their lives, right? So the wave offering really is a pattern of intercession. In science, a wave is defined as a transfer of energy. Ocean waves are called mechanical waves because they travel through a medium, right? The medium in this case is water, right? The wave is just traveling through the water. The water doesn't actually travel with the wave, it only moves up and down. It's just being affected by the energy of the wave. All right. So a beautiful story of the mercy of Yahusha with us. The mercy of Yahusha is in the chapter of Mark, chapter 5, verses 1 through 20. For time's sake, I'm not going to read that. But what that is, it's the story of the man in the tombs, right? It is interesting that it is preceded by a story in chapter 4 of the wind pushing waves into the boat that Yahusha and his disciples were traveling in, terrifying the disciples so that they disturbed the master's sleep, to wake up and show them how to deal with it. All right. They're like, don't you even care? We're perishing. When they arrive at the other side of the sea, they are immediately met by a man who had been banished from polite society to live amongst the tombs because he was demon possessed and unable to be controlled, even with chains and fetters. He spent his days alone, crying and cutting himself with sharp rocks. He obviously wanted to be free because as soon as he saw Yahusha approaching, he ran to him, not away from him. That's to me a really important point when I'm trying to look for those, that I'm supposed to minister to. There are plenty of people. There's a verse in scripture. I wish I knew exactly where it was, but it talks about, to some, we are the smell of life. To others, we are the smell of death. There are those that are looking for a solution, and then there are those that are not, right? And we have to have that discernment for who we're sent to. He obviously wanted to be free because as soon as he saw Yahusha approaching, he ran to him, not away from him. Yahusha looked upon him with compassion and cast the legion of devils out of him. And now here's what he said to him. Mark 5:18 through 20. And when he was come into the ship that he had been possessed with the devil, he that had been possessed with the devil prayed him that he might go with him. He's like, I just want to follow you. I just want to go where you go. Howbeit, Yahusha suffered him not. He said, no. But said unto him, go home to your friends and tell them how great things Yahuwah has done for you and has had compassion on you. And he departed and began to publish in Decapolis how great things Yahusha had done for him. And all the men did marvel. All right. So when Yahusha healed this man, compassion is what preceded the healing. This is the spirit of mercy, to care deeply about the tormented soul that is before you, rather than focusing on the outward appearance of the person. I am certain, just like today, in the days when Yahusha walked the earth, there were many tortured souls, but he was led by the Ruach to the ones that had a desire for the gift of freedom that his spirit of mercy and compassion enabled him to administer. The word hesed, the Hebrew word for mercy, is defined by Strong's as kindness that has three different basic components which always interact: strength, steadfastness, and love. Any understanding of that word that fails to suggest all three inevitably loses some of its richness. Love by itself easily becomes sentimentalized or universalized apart from the covenant, right? This is what we see in the religions that won't follow the covenant that was set forth, the Torah, right? Living in lawlessness. And here's a big clue. I was reading this out of Dr. Monzo's book the other day. I'm really excited to be reading his book, The Aleph Tav Body. But he was sharing from his own experience of coming into the life of Torah, that the Ruach really just whispered unto him, what's another name for the Antichrist? And it was whispered unto him, the lawless one, the one who won't follow Torah. There's a big hint, right? I thought that was really interesting. Okay, let me get back in here. So love by itself easily becomes sentimentalized or universalized apart from the covenant. Yet strength or steadfastness only express the fulfillment of a legal obligation. Okay, so you've got both extremes. Now, this is what I've seen in my walk when I look at the extremes of like the Orthodox Judaism and everything's law, 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 and then see the other extreme of the woohoo, the charismatic, faith, life, this, that, and the other, and we can do anything, and it's all under the blood, and Yahusha nailed it all to the, I mean, right? Okay, so This is what we got. Yet strength or steadfastness only express the fulfillment of a legal obligation. Hesed, mercy, is not only a matter of obligation, but also generosity. It is not only loyalty, but it is also mercy. The weaker party seeks the protection and blessing of the patron and protector, but he may not lay absolute claim to it. The stronger party remains committed to his promise, but retains his freedom, especially with regard to the manner in which he will implement those promises. Hesed implies personal involvement and commitment in a relationship beyond the rule of law. This is Messiah. This is why he his rod and his staff can comfort me, right? Because he is able, his mercy involves that aspect of administering it in my life in the way that he sees fit, because he is more interested in my character than my comfort. He is invested in my character. He wants me to be all that he intended me to be. He wants me to fulfill everything that he commissioned me to fulfill upon this earth. All right, so I'm just going to leave this one thing, this one scripture, Isaiah 55:3. Incline your ear and come unto me, hear, and your soul shall live, and I will cut an everlasting covenant with you, even the sure mercies of David. I have really enjoyed this time with you today. Looks like maybe I have just a little bit of time left. Let me see. Where are we? Where are we at? Okay, I do just have maybe 1 or 2 minutes left. I will share with you one of the things that's in my notes that I didn't get to share was Psalm 105. I really wanted to wrap up my whole message with that psalm, but there's no way that I have in the remaining time to wrap up that whole psalm. I did also have this from Hosea 6:4-6. I will read this one. O Ephraim, what shall I do unto you? O Yehuda, what shall I do unto you? For your goodness is as a morning cloud, and as the early dew it goes away. Therefore have I hewed them by the prophets. I have slain them by the words of my mouth, and your judgments are as the light that goes forth. For I desired mercy and not sacrifice, and the knowledge of Elohim more than burnt offerings. Micah 6:6-8. Wherewith shall I come before Yahuwah and bow myself before the high Elohim? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves of a year old? Will Yahweh be pleased with thousands of rams, or with 10,000s of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has showed you, O man, what is good, and what Yahuwah requires of you, but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your Elohim. All right, so that is going to be it for me today. I am so glad that you came to join me, and I hope you'll come back and join me on the next time. All right, now I have to figure out exactly how do I end my broadcast. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming and being with me.
watching the time just ticking. Clock runs around, days in and out, can't really call it living. Somewhere I let light go dark, but here's where my new story starts.